ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nihilist Wrestling episode 13. Hey, that is my favorite number. I am your host, Ash Manson. I'm lucky and I am fortunate to have made it to 13 episodes. I know they say the number 13 is unlucky, but luck is a construct that does not actually exist. There's some nihilism for you. Alright, what do we have on tap for you today? It looks like we have WWE Clash at the Castle in Scotland coming up on Saturday. I'm actually more hyped for that pay-per-view than I have been for a long time. It's one of the pay-per-views I'm looking forward to the most. I know I'm still saying pay-per-view. PLE sounds weird. So we're going to talk about Clash at the Castle a little bit. We're going to talk about AEW going into Forbidden Door. And of course, we are going to talk about my favorite subject, the Judgment Day, and more specifically, Dominic Mysterio. But, alright, topic number one. Let's talk about this awkward position that AEW is in right now. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of miss when AEW only had 4 pay-per-views. Not that I don't enjoy every pay-per-view that they put on, it's just like they really felt like they were a lot more meaningful back then. And I think the first one that they added, I could be wrong, but if memory serves, the first pay-per-view they added to the 4 was Forbidden Door. Now, Forbidden Door is a great concept, but now we're we're a couple weeks out from it, and we don't have a ton of matches announced. And I've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. Forbidden Door is such a weird pay-per-view in a lot of ways because they're dealing with people that are not on the roster, not there to promote the matches coming up. I know they've been airing some segments with the New Japan people and all that, but again, as I keep saying, it kind of feels like a one-off. And while I look forward to the show, I will restate that I'm kind of looking forward to AEW getting past Forbidden Door because I thought they were really cooking with a lot of the storylines they had going on. But Forbidden Door, because they have to do the AEW versus New Japan angle, it's just somewhat of a disruption to the flow of things. And while we're on the topic of AEW and all that, I want to talk about the last episode of NXT. I know, I said we're talking about AEW. But on that episode of NXT, we had former AEW wrestlers Cody Rhodes, Ethan Page, Shawn Spears, and Brian Pillman Jr., now known as Lexus King, and they did a picture with I think it's the meme on the internet that they're recreating is a bunch of Spider-Mans pointing at each other. I think that's it. I'm not hip, don't believe me. But they had the 4 of them all pointing at each other, and the obvious insinuation is hey, I saw you before. You were in AEW was the subtext. And even when Ethan Page debuted, Vic Joseph started to say, wasn't he in A? And Booker's hey, chill. Don't say the competitor's name on television, which obviously that was a line that he was probably told to say, and it's not like he was doing something he wasn't supposed to. But I think it's cool that WWE is acknowledging AEW, and it is it's also pretty cool that they were able to the 4 of them had their time in AEW, and I think they all did pretty good with what they were given and all that, but maybe you could argue that they're better off now. Lexus King, I think, was born out of the Brian Pillman Jr.'s inability to get over as Brian Pillman Jr. in AEW. They didn't, WWE doesn't like to use doesn't like to use people's real names. They didn't let Braun Breaker use the Steiner name. I know his real name is actually like Rex Steiner or something like that. But they reinvented Brian Pillman Jr. and he's a bigger deal now because so many of us already knew who he was. Ethan Page got shuttled right to the main event. I know Shawn Spears is kind of in the twilight of his career, but I think it's really cool that he's getting a chance to do something meaningful again in NXT. And Cody Rhodes, like, I remember towards the end of Cody Rhodes' time in AEW, the crowd was like booing him pretty bad, and I think like one of the main reasons like he was getting booed was they called it the Codyverse. There was so much there's a lot of TV time devoted to Cody Rhodes and a lot of things that seemed kind of benign, but since he was the EVP, like I think like if memory serves, they did like a gender reveal party for his baby. But the real like the heart of the reason why I think people were booing Cody Rhodes was just because he was that smiling white bread baby face that I keep saying that nobody likes. But I wasn't one of those people booing Cody. Actually, I was annoyed at AEW fans for booing Cody because, and here's the difference, I always say I don't like the smiling baby face. But the reason why I don't like the smiling baby face is because I find that kind of character to be inauthentic. But in the case of Cody Rhodes, like, I think he is truly, at his core, the smiling white bread babyface, and he is so genuine that I think that his portrayal of more or less himself on television just resonates with me in a way that the John Cenas of the world, for example, didn't. The overall point I just want to mention is, so AEW didn't exactly knock it out of the park with those four, and now they're back in WWE. I just think it's so cool that if something isn't clicking, there's somewhere else to work right now, regardless of what you feel about AEW or WWE. Personally, I love them both. But it's just so awesome that these guys are getting a second chance. The same way a lot of guys from WWE went over to AEW and completely reinvented themselves. Chris Jericho, for example, I can't get enough of the learning tree. I know it annoys people, but it's supposed to. You think about wrestling, like how it was like in 2019. WWE was absolutely terrible. Like, I could barely watch and it wasn't just in 2019, like the year AEW was born. Like, WWE was kind of difficult to get through for years prior to that. I mean, there were bright moments, but you turn on Monday Night Raw, and I don't know about you guys, but I would never watch Monday Night Raw live. I would watch it on DVR, and it normally took me 45 minutes to an hour to get through the bits of it that I found interesting. And I actually watched like Monday Night Raw, like I started watching it like an hour late, like I'm in Eastern time, so I started watching it at 9 Eastern, and I thought I was just going to skip all the fluff and catch up pretty quick to the live broadcast, but I don't think I skipped practically any of it for the first time in ever. And I think a lot of it has to do with the competition that AEW has created. So I'm thankful AEW is a thing, and I'm thankful that WWE has had to respond to AEW. And that's going to bring me to my next topic, because Monday Night Raw is really like the best it's been for the longest time since I can remember. So let's get into that. For the majority of the past 5 years of pro wrestling, since AEW has been a thing, I have thought that AEW Dynamite is the best weekly wrestling show there is. For that time that CM Punk came back after the Brawlout and they launched Collision, I thought Collision was the best wrestling show on television. During the peak of the bloodline angles. There have been various points throughout history where the bloodline has definitely made SmackDown must watch, if not the best wrestling show on television. But the one show that I feel has been lagging behind for a very, very long time is the longest episodic television show in history, WWE Monday Night Raw. But I can say right now that I don't think I look forward to any wrestling show as much as I look forward to Monday Night Raw. I think Raw is actually just firing on all cylinders right now. And it's for a lot of reasons. Like, we have the Clash at the Castle pay-per-view coming up. I know, I keep saying pay-per-view. It's always just going to be a pay-per-view to me. Get over it. All right. There's Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. Now, those two, they've wrestled in the past, but those two for the World Heavyweight Championship and this program, even though they haven't spent a ton of time interacting, it has a lot of story behind it with like Drew costing Damian several times while he was trying to cash in. And I think one of the more interesting things about this title match is you could conceivably see Drew winning. Like, if I had to make a prediction, I would say that I would predict that Damian retains, but it is not beyond the realm of possibility that Drew McIntyre gets his moment and wins back the World Heavyweight Championship in his home country of Scotland. So, like, I don't know, that program leading the ticket on Raw, I think, has definitely been interesting. And of course, there's that undercurrent of, like, that there's a Drew McIntyre CM Punk program coming up. When CM Punk, like, gets healthy, oh my god, I can't wait for that, because it has just been, whenever those two have been on my television, it's been must-see. You know that the SmackDown title match, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles, they're telling a great story there, and I thought AJ's little fake out, like the Mark Henry style fake out, like, I'm gonna retire, LOL JK, I just wanted another title match. I thought that was a great storytelling right there. Look forward to the match. Again, there's probably no way in hell that AJ wins that match, but it's at least been entertaining television. But something about Monday Night Raw, the main thing that keeps me invested in Monday Night Raw is, of course, the Judgment Day. I'm a big Judgment Day fan. I talk about the Judgment Day every time I make one of these videos. But that angle between Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan is so compelling for so many reasons. Let's just this last episode, every page they write in that story just makes it more interesting. And I was saying last week, I'm like, I might be the only person that says this, but I feel sympathy for my guy Dominic Mysterio because Liv is practically bullying him. I know that's an interesting way to bully someone. That might not be the right term, but she is, in a way, emotionally bullying him. She knows that he's in a relationship with Rhea Ripley, her sworn nemesis, but she's ignoring the boundaries that Dom is trying to lay down. And I thought that maybe I was the only one who was sympathetic to him because I'm a big Dom fan. I know he's pretty despised, and I laid out my theory as to why I think the Judgment Day should turn babyface last week. If you didn't catch that, go back and watch for context if you don't mind. But I don't know, I was watching Busted Open. I was watching a YouTube clip of Busted Open, and Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray were talking about that angle, and they kind of seem to see it the same way as me. They're like, Dom is actually holding his own pretty well, all things considered. I know the man, Dominic Gutierrez, is married, but the character, Dominic Mysterio, he's just dating Rhea Ripley, right? So he's a young man. He's like 26, 27, something like that. He's been dating Rhea for, is it even 2 years now? And then all of a sudden he's got this other girl, good looking, world champion, all up in his stuff and all that. And maybe the married man Dom would be like, hey, I'm not risking everything that I have built at home for this. But again, the character Dominic is simply dating like his woman for the past 2 years, and I'm not saying, like, I'm not making any excuses for cheaters necessarily, but he's being pressured a lot, and I think you can at least sympathize with his plight. So Liv gives Dominic her hotel key, and like Dominic tells the Judgment Day, like, can you believe this? She left her hotel key, and Carlito's like, that's cool, and Finn Balor's like, that's not cool. But of course, if Carlito Caribbean Cool says something's cool, I think it's pretty goddamn cool. So anyway, like, and what, like, another thing about that segment there is, I don't know, it's actually probably a later segment in the show. They had the Judgment Day was recurring throughout the night, and I think that's another one of the reasons why I enjoy Raw so much, is because the Judgment Day, which is my group, is so heavily featured. But the hotel key is on the table, and they I think it was Damian Priest who like initiated, like, all put their fists in and, like, fist bump each other. And I think the intention was, like, he tells Carlito in Spanish, like, come on, like, put your fist in too, making, just insinuating that Carlito was previous, like, Damian Priest made it very clear that Carlito wasn't welcome there, but he's saying, come on, like, you're at least somewhat part of the team now. And I think that was supposed to be the distraction, because Finn Balor went and grabbed that hotel key. And also, like, some weeks prior, like, and this wasn't even put on camera, but like Finn Balor was seen arriving to an arena at Liv Morgan. I don't really know if that's just, a thing where Fergal Devitt and Gianna Daddio are actually friends and are just traveling together, or it was a seed planted, like, letting us know, hey, watch out for this. But it's very interesting the way Finn, like, grabbed that hotel key. Does he want him some Liv Morgan? I don't really know what's going on. Or is he at least, like, sympathetic to the idea of Liv Morgan joining the Judgment Day? Which kind of, like I said, what I think is happening is that they're setting this up so that Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, because they're the Terror Twins, like, Dom is going to eventually give in to Liv Morgan, and that's going to cause Priest to go off on him because, Dom betrayed his sister, and that would be the end of it, and they would probably be replaced by Carlito and Liv Morgan, which is fine. But as I said last week, I think the absolute best way to do it, because I don't think it is, like, so out there, that I think that Dominic is at least somewhat sympathetic in the role that he's playing. Like, if Dominic puts his foot down and declares his allegiance to Mommy, I think that's an instant Judgment Day babyface turn, and they could be the most popular thing on Raw. And another thing, with all this going down on Raw right now, and I didn't even mention Chad Gable. Like, Chad Gable and Sami Zayn have an Intercontinental title match at Clash at the Castle. I know there's a little convolution there because Chad Gable, it's reported that he has not renewed his WWE contract. I don't know if he is going to renew his WWE contract or not. But if he does, oh God, I would like to see him go to AEW, but right now it just seems, I don't know if this push is like WWE's way of saying, like, don't go anywhere, we got you covered over here. But if they, if they've received any sort of assurance from Chad Gable that he's going to stay with WWE, I think they should absolutely pull the trigger at Clash at the Castle and make Chad Gable the Intercontinental Champion, because I think he's like a monster heel now, and I think if they do what I want and turn the Judgment Day babyface, there's going to be a little bit of a hole at heel, and I think you slot Gable right in there, and I think he would excel. Him and Gunther can be two of the main heels on the show. Ludwig Kaiser too, I think he has what it takes to be like a main heel on Raw too. And while we're on the subject of wrestlers leaving WWE, it does appear that Ricochet is done with the company. That was a very, if that was a send-off for Ricochet, that was one hell of a send-off. All that really made me, with Ricochet, he had an altercation with Braun Breaker earlier, and then Braun finds him later in the back and ends up power slamming him onto the windshield of a car, and we see Samantha Irvin run off as Ricochet is whisked away to the hospital. That really makes me want to see Ricochet come back and challenge Braun Breaker. That if you didn't know that Ricochet supposedly wasn't renewing his contract, you would think that was exactly what's happening there. But, as much as I would like that one-time matchup between Ricochet and Braun Breaker, I do think that Ricochet is probably much better in AEW. He's a wrestler first and foremost, and AEW is a wrestling company first and foremost, but WWE did a great job of sending him off, and I think also, if that really was a send-off and not a way to, build up to a future match, I think that was just another, cool, good faith thing on WWE's part to... They wrote him off, but they didn't make it, off of television, but they didn't make him look ridiculous. They made him look sympathetic. They made us want to see him again. And although you could argue that's bad business, I kind of like it. So, we'll see what happens with Ricochet. Of course, there's one more thing that I have to get to before we're done here today, and that's the Wyatt family. I keep on mentioning them. Supposedly, I don't know what the source was for this, but supposedly Uncle Howdy wrote letters that were assumed to be to Eric Rowan, to Dexter Loomis, to Nikki Cross, and Joe Gacy. And when I read them, it really seemed like that was indeed what was happening. I think it's... I don't... I've got mixed feelings about that, because I think all of them are great. I think they'd be great in the Wyatt family, especially Eric Rowan, I think, is an absolute shoo-in. Loomis, Cross, and Gacy are all great too, but I feel like you have to have Strowman and Alexa Bliss. If there's only going to be 6 of them, well, somebody's got to be the odd man out. So I don't know, but I'm going to trust them on this. But I don't see why they wouldn't put Braun Strowman with them, especially if Braun's going to be on Raw anyway. And it does seem like they're headed to Raw, because we got indication that the Raw after Clash of the Castle is when you're finally going to see the new Wyatt family or the Wyatt 6 debut. Oh my God, I cannot wait. If we're going to have the Judgment Day and the Wyatt family on the same show on Monday Night Raw, Monday nights is going to be must-see television again. And CM Punk is coming back. They almost, they're going to need, The Rock and Roman Reigns and all that to come back to SmackDown to compete with what they have going on Monday Night Raw. And I just think about what I talked about at the beginning of the show. Monday Night Raw in 2019 and before was so painful to watch. I would Like, if I ever did put it on live, I would constantly fall asleep. It was a terrible show, and I just kind of watched it out of habit. Nitro isn't on the air anymore, and I'm just trained to watch wrestling on Monday nights. So I watched Raw out of habit, kind of mocking it a lot of times as it was on. But Monday Night Raw at this stage in 2024, in my opinion, is absolutely on fire, and I can't wait to see what is next. All right, so Clash at the Castle this Saturday. We've got a pretty good match card so far. I like how they got the Scottish people involved. It's going to be a great novelty pop for all of them. I've already talked about Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. That's going to be one hell of a match. Bayley versus Piper Niven. Again, we got the Scottish woman, Piper Niven. I don't think she has much of a chance in that match, but it'll be really cool for Piper to get to wrestle in front of her home country. We talked about Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable. That's going to be excellent. We talked about Cody versus AJ. And then, of course, they're giving the other two Scottish women, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, which I am huge fans of. Like, I think they've dropped the ball so hard with them since they've gotten called up to the main roster. They were one of the more interesting acts on NXT. Then they got called up to the main roster to do almost nothing. They're facing Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, which probably puts their odds at winning in front of their home country pretty small, but I think that would be excellent for them. As much as I'm a fan of Jade and Bianca, I gotta admit I'm pulling for Isla and Alba on this one. And I think that's all they have announced so far. That's coming up this Saturday, and it's early in the day. I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah. Until next time, revel in what you are.